Hi everyone and welcome back. So in today's video, I want to talk about primers. I'm going to talk about my top 10 primers. These are the only primers I use. I have got primers for all skin types. Now the reason why I actually have primers for all skin types is because my skin type really depends on the weather. During the month of May and June, it gets really oily, and then in winters, it's very dry. There's also a period where I have combination skin type. Now I have got some really affordable primers, then mid-range, and then some of my favorite high-end primers as well. I have a lot to talk about these primers, so let's just start the video. I'm going to start with the Rare Beauty Pore Diffusing Primer. Now this is a pore diffusing primer that can be used by all skin types. It has a very gel-like texture. It doesn't feel too silicone-y. It does make your skin very smooth and soft. It also hydrates your skin a little bit. Now if I have to choose one from both the Rare Beauty primers, that is illuminating and pore diffusing, I'd say that you go with the pore diffusing primer even if you have dry skin. I tried both these primers in the store, and I'll say that the illuminating primer has sort of chunky shimmer particles in it. Like if you apply it on the skin, it's going to be really visible. On the other hand, this pore diffusing one is more of an all-rounder primer. Now since we are talking about this, I also want to give you an affordable alternative of this primer. This is not something that I use a lot, but this is a primer that I tried and I really liked it. It's the Insight Professional Moisturizing Primer. Now this is not at all a dupe of this primer, but these feel similar. Not the same, but kind of similar. The Insight one is definitely a little bit more blurring, a little bit more mattifying, although this says that it's a moisturizing primer, but it's a little bit more mattifying primer. The Rare Beauty one obviously feels more gel-like. It has a more gel-like texture, and this feels a little bit more thick. I'm just going to swatch both of them. So this is the Rare Beauty primer and the other one is Insight. The texture is not the same, I'd say. The Rare Beauty one is definitely more gel-like and the Insight one is more thick, but they do almost the similar job on my skin. Like when I used the Insight primer for the first time, it did remind me a lot of the Rare Beauty primer. So basically these are pore diffusing primers for all skin types. Then I have a primer from Color Bar. This is the Color Bar Perfect Match primer. This is one of my old favorites. It again has a very satin type of feel when you touch it, and gives you a very smooth base. This is definitely a silicone based primer, I think, but it is oil free. I really like the texture. It's definitely thicker than the previous two primers and it's very mattifying, as you can see. This is going to be great for oily and combination skin. You can also use it if you have dry skin and a lot of texture, So this is a good primer for oily skin, combination skin. You can apply it in your T-zone, and it can also be used by dry skin. If you have a lot of texture on your skin, this can hide the texture to an extent. So this is basically a mattifying, blurring kind of primer. Okay, next, this is the primer that I'm really loving these days. It's the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. When I tried this primer for the first time, I hated it. It made my foundation patchy for some reason. Probably I applied too much. You have to know how to use this primer. It's going to give you a really good long-lasting makeup base. That's the main job of this primer. It's going to hold your makeup in place. It's going to prevent creasing, and that's why I really like it. And it can be used by all skin types. Initially it's going to feel sticky and a little bit uncomfortable after application, but you have to give it, I'd say, 20 to 30 seconds and then apply your foundation. After foundation application, it's going to feel completely normal. So this is a very sticky, gluey kind of primer. So this is what it looks like after blending. It's going to feel a little tacky, and that's completely fine. That's what's going to hold your makeup in place. It also has this very beautiful dewy finish. I really like the finish of this primer. So moving to the next dewy primer that I really love, this is the M.A.C Studio Radiance Moisturizing Plus Illuminating Silky Primer. Now, I have seen a lot of people talking about the M.A.C Strobe Cream, finding dupes of the M.A.C Strobe Cream, and I have done that too. But I feel that I like this more than the Strobe Cream. The M.A.C Strobe Cream gives you a very pearly finish, and this gives you a very dewy skin-like finish. It's a very moisturizing, very nourishing kind of primer without any pearly or shimmer particles. The glow that you get from this primer is just because of the formula. This, according to me, is definitely one of the best clean makeup primers. I really love what M.A.C did with the packaging of this primer. You get it in a tube, and then on the inside you also have a pump. So this is very travel friendly. This is the primer that I like traveling with the most. It's very dewy, very hydrating, very nourishing. And all of that glow is just because of its formula. No shimmer, no glitter at all. Then I have the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. This is all-in-one primer and moisturizer. This again is very moisturizing, very nourishing. It's another one of my favorite primers. Now, I don't have a lot of texture on my skin. I have a very smooth skin, especially during winters, it gets very dry. So I don't want a lot of silicone-y, blurring kind of primers. I go for more moisturizing and nourishing and dewy finish primers. During summers, dewy products are all over the place after an hour of applying my makeup. So that's why I try to use all the dewy products during winters. I don't use the M.A.C Studio Radiance Primer during summers because I feel that it's too much for my skin. I like using more blurring stuff during summers. This is a moisturizing primer that can also be used during summers. It's not too dewy. For me, it's sort of a moisturizer. It does make my skin feel a little bit more smooth, so I will say that this has got just a little bit of blurring effect too. Makes your skin smooth, hides texture and all of that stuff. But for me, it's mainly a really good moisturizer, after which I can just skip to foundation without any primer. So whenever I feel that I am going to be wearing my makeup for more than 5 hours, 6 hours, I definitely use this face base because this is like a layer of nourishment under the foundation. My skin needs some nourishment even if I'm wearing makeup on top. Next is Smashbox. You can't talk about primers and not talk about Smashbox. Especially this one over here, the Photo Finish Smooth and Blur Primer is the classic blurring primer. I just love the texture. It's not too thick. It blends so easily and makes my skin super smooth. Feels so soft and so cushiony. It's not too mattifying, but it does give you a very smooth base. You can see it's not very mattifying. That's something that I really like about this primer. And it's also a fact that you can let me use it during winters. You get that smooth base without a very matte or drying finish. This just disappears into the skin and makes it super soft. Again, this is a primer that can be used by all skin types. I have another primer from Smashbox. I am about to exhaust this one. This is the Smashbox Photo Finish Control Mattifying Primer. This has salicylic acid and silk screen complex. Now this has a gel-like texture and it's sort of a mattifying primer. It does increase the longevity of your makeup a lot. I definitely like to apply this under my eyes in this area, right on my smile lines, because a lot of creasing happens over there and this does prevent creasing for hours. Other than that, if you have really oily areas on your face, for example this area or this area, you can apply this primer in those areas and it will keep that matte for a few hours. This was one of my favorite primers in summer. I don't use it a lot these days because it's mattifying and I don't want that these days. But if you have oily skin, you should definitely try it out. Next I have the Prosh Silk Blur Primer. Now this again is made on the same concept as the Bobbi Brown face base, so it acts as a moisturizer plus primer. First of all, I really like the fragrance of this primer. It's very rosy. And the next thing is it feels exactly like my moisturizer, like a moisturizer. It does make your skin again a little bit soft, just like the Bobbi Brown face base. But if you apply too much of this primer, it's going to pill. So make sure that you're using just the right amount. Other than that, this is a really good primer plus moisturizer. Primerizer is the term for that, I think. The finish is not too glowy or dewy, like the M.A.C Studio Radiance Primer. It does give a little bit of glow to your skin and I really like that. This can also be used without any makeup, just as a moisturizer. So this is another really good primerizer. Then I have this Bollywood Filter Primer from Renee. This is very similar to the Color Bar Perfect Match Primer. This again is a primer that's supposed to give you a very smooth filter-like finish. It's a blurring primer. This again has got fragrance. I'll say that this is like an affordable version of the Color Bar Perfect Match Primer. You can call it like a dupe of the Color Bar Perfect Match Primer. The Color Bar one is around rupees 800 and this costs rupees 450. You can get any one of them. If you don't like fragrance, go for the Color Bar Perfect Match Primer. But basically these do the same job. Again, this performs same as the Color Bar Primer. It's not very drying for your skin. It's not going to mattify your skin a lot, but it does give you that blurring sort of filter-like finish. I mean, filters aren't real. Your skin can't possibly look like a filter, but yeah, these do blur texture to an extent. So those were all the primers that I use. I really hope that you find this video helpful. I didn't actually plan this video. It's kind of random, but now I'm thinking of doing a top 10 series for every makeup category. So I think I've already done liquid and cream blushes and then concealers and foundations. So this one is the primer. Let me know what you want to see next. Other than that, if you have any questions about any of the primers, do not forget to mention them in the comments. I'd love love to answer them. And that's it for the video. If you think it was helpful, do not forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.